Hello, thanks for joining the Lazaridis School for our Beyond the Degree series. My name is Graham McCormick. I'm the Corporate Engagement Officer for the Lazaridis School of Business and Economics at Wilfrid Laurier University, and I'm a BBA alumnus from 2011. Today we're joined by Rich Dang, an MBA alumnus from 2016. Rich is currently the VP of Sales for ChefHero. Rich has established himself in the Toronto tech community through successfully scaling teams at FreshBooks and Uber prior to joining ChefHero last year. Rich, thanks for joining us today.
Great. Thank you so much, Graham, for the opportunity to be here.
You know, I'm just thinking, let's just jump right into it. You did your MBA at the Lazaridis School. Why did you choose to go back to school?
Great question. The MBA was something that I always wanted to do. Being a second generation immigrant from Vietnam, education has always been one of those things that's been pushed from my family all the way through. I was the first of my family to get my undergrad, and also the first of my extended family, to get my MBA. But one of the major things that was a pusher besides family was, I was working sales at Oracle during that time, surrounded by a lot of great salespeople, a lot of people, sometimes even 2 times my age during that time. And I looked around, and I just thought to myself, how do I essentially differentiate myself from this competition and not kind of put a ceiling, like a barrier above my head that I can't get across. And what I looked at was who my boss was, but not just who my boss, but my boss's boss. And I looked at their LinkedIn, and I just saw a commonality amongst all of them, which is their MBA, right? So I really got down to it, and I told myself, I'm never going to be a leader of the folks, someone like myself, but also people around me. I needed to get this degree, and I was super happy that I decided to do so.
It's interesting, the way you looked around the organization, because how old were you when you started the MBA program?
Geez, I'm going to say like 27 or 28, I think, during that time, might be around there.
So, some really good work experience, but again, the foresight to say, what's going to help me get to the next level.
Yeah.
You did your MBA downtown Toronto. Why did you choose the Lazaridis School?
So in terms of my job during that time, between the time that I'd got into, was leaving Oracle, I actually got into FreshBooks during that time. It was a startup, had really good culture, a really good team atmosphere, and I saw a lot of potential in that company. And a big thing for me was picking a school that would allow me to work and also doing the schooling at the same time. So the nice thing is the Lazaridis program at Toronto was perfect. It was every 2 weeks, Friday night, Saturday. You're giving up pretty much like 20 hours, 25 hours, but the program understands that, right? And it's very flexible, and it was just perfect. I was able to then also apply a lot of the things that I learned in the program to work. So the part-time program was just perfect for that. And again, just super happy I was able to further my career from the MBA program, and also help further FreshBooks' business as well from applying what I learned.
So you mentioned that you're able to take what you were learning in class on the Friday, Saturday, and apply it back in work on the Monday. Is there anything in particular you can kind of remember that resonates with you, either a class, something inside, or something with related to group work and spending time with your classmates outside of the designated class time?
Yeah, absolutely. So back when I was at Waterloo, I took a sociology degree, right? It wasn't a hard skill, or there's a lot of soft skill things that I was learning along the ways. And the MBA really rounded up my skill sets in terms of understanding operations, finance, accounting, a lot of the things that I didn't really think about as much, right? So, on top of my MBA, I did the CPA program, and that had really differentiated myself to be not just a sales leader, but also sales ops minded person that actually speaks with other departments like finance and operations and those kind of things. So being able to take the accounting principles that I'd learned, and then build out a sales forecast that speaks to all those things that accounting needs, things like cost of acquisition and those kind of things, has been a godsend.
No, it's really interesting the way that you're able to mirror, take, sales and put that together, with the qualitative, with the accounting. Um, is there, going back to your time at Oracle, what drew you to sales initially, Rich?
Yeah, I was always wanting to be in sales. It's one of those things where in high school, I always tell the story. I was working at Rogers Video during that time, probably dating myself, because Blockbuster and Rogers Video don't exist anymore. But my manager at the time was watching me sell these coupon books, and he was like, "Rich, you really got a skill, a gift for the gab. You should really look into that." Kind of took it for heart, and then I grew up relatively poor back at Gin and Finch, so money has always been one of those things where it was very important for me to make sure that I was able to like pay through my undergrad while going to school, and also pay off all my debt and all on those lines as well. So throughout school, stayed in sales. When I left, I had just this great repertoire of skill sets on the retail side that I translated over to then, executive consultative sales for for larger businesses. So, and again, initially that's the reason why it pulled me in. Is just you're in control of how much money you make, right? So, love that side of things.
Well, you've had the opportunity to work at, almost every different level, in a sales organization. What skills do you think are most important for someone who's aspiring to become a sales professional like yourself?
I mean, that's a great question, and it all depends on the level that you're in, right? So if you're talking about an individual contributor, and these are things that I talk to a lot about with my sales reps that I've coached along throughout my career, right? There's a lot of soft skills that you need to pick up, and being able to a lot of people think sales is about just speaking and just talking and influencing people, but it's about listening, right? It's about understanding and listening to your client, understanding what the pain is. And there's a lot of great books out there that can really give you a foundation behind that, like spin selling or challenger sale and those kind of things. But a lot of it is practice, right? So just being able to get into yourself in a position where you're comfortable with being uncomfortable, being able to speak to a random person, being shot down. Back in the day when I was a sales rep, a lot of managers called me a hard noser. Hard noser being you knock on a door, get a door slammed in your face, and you just keep knocking on the next door, right? So it's like this thick skin that you grow over time. So those things are the things that you kind of learn just on the job, right? And again, you can pick that up doing any kind of retail sales. As you further your career, there's 3 paths you could typically take, and I tell a lot of reps this when I work with them. You can either be a great individual contributor and finish that route, continue to work on your craft, work on different ways to handle negotiations and handle objections, those kind of things, and work on like bigger enterprise deals. There's the manager type. If you're going to be a manager, the best sales reps aren't always the best managers as well, right? So it's about soft skills and being understanding for empathy, and just understanding how to push people and those kind of things, but also analytics. The things that I learned from the CPA, being able to apply call statistics, talk times, and just seeing the trends relating to the data. There's in sales tools these days, a lot of this data is there. And the final one's a builder, which is a combination of both, and that's basically building up sales channels and sales organizations from scratch. And that's a very specific skill set that if anybody wants to reach out to me, I can always tell them about.
Well, reach out to you. I'm thinking, are there any organizations you're a part of as a sales professional that you'd recommend, someone coming up to look at, or, look at joining for, advice and mentorship?
Absolutely. For a lot of the students, there's something called the Great Canadian Sales Competition that I highly recommend. I believe Laurier has a chapter. I was actually one of the winning coaches. I want to say like 4 or 5 years from now ago. But it's a great way for you to expose yourself to the idea of pitching, a company, and there's scholarships relating to that as well. And they're always looking for volunteers too. So highly recommend that for a lot of students. For folks that are more mature in their sales careers, I highly recommend start setting your aspirations towards a new group that I joined, which is Revenue Collective. Okay. It's invite only, but it's for folks that are, the future leaders as well as the current leaders across the world, pretty much. There's chapters in Toronto, there's chapters across the US, seen Ireland, I've seen all across the world. So
I think, we'll put both of those in the description below, so people can follow those links. So that's the Great Canadian Sales Challenge, and what was the other one?
Great Canadian Sales Competition, and then the Revenue Collective.
Perfect. So you'll find those links below. You're at ChefHero now. What is ChefHero? Tell the folks who may not be familiar with the brand.
Yeah, so ChefHero is a Series A company. So for those that don't know, we're past seed. We've got funding. We're working towards a Series B right now. We are a marketplace that allows a restaurant to find the supplies they need on an easy to use platform, like a single application, for example. So marketplaces being the buyer, being the restaurant, and the supplier, being, let's say a meat supplier or a produce supplier and those kind of things. So think of it as like the Amazon for restaurants.
Yeah. And how did you get involved with them? You were at Uber previously. Was it just, networking in the industry, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was the CEO reaching out to me. It was actually a very tough time, obviously, with COVID and everything that happened. I built up a very strong resume throughout my career working at FreshBooks. And with COVID and everything that had happened, there had been major layoffs actually with Uber. So surprisingly, even given the projects that I was working on at Uber, I was like, oh, and after that had happened, a lot of the word had gotten in the community. The CEO and the investors currently that are within ChefHero also were investors at FreshBooks. And the CEO reached out to me and at ChefHero and said, hey, like, we want you to be our VP of sales. Like, I'm not stopping until you say yes. So I was hoping to have a little bit of a break. I took a couple of weeks off, but got right back into it. I'm so happy I did.
That's, it's amazing story to hear, given how tough, 2020 was for so many people. Focus on kind of one aspect of that. How did you find onboarding with a brand new company, with a, kind of fully remote situation where we're all finding ourselves in today?
Yeah, I was already kind of ironclad with that when I was back at Uber, because Uber, I was working on North American level projects during that time. So, one of my projects, after I pretty much ran the Canadian sales operations for a little bit, was helping scale up a North American wide named account and field sales team. Right. So, we took inside sales reps, we hired a bunch of outside sales reps, 50 across the US. And a lot of what I was doing was working with people out of San Francisco, out of Austin, Texas, out of New York, Chicago. So I had already onboarded myself into a North American level role. So, and then met all these folks. And now here I am during a pandemic, meeting a brand new team, a brand new company at ChefHero. Luckily enough, obviously the restrictions had lifted a little bit, was able to meet my team for a little bit. We came back to the office for a little bit, but obviously lately with the restrictions coming back down, I was able to meet everybody, build that strong connection, hire everybody, train everybody, and now we're just revving and ready to go. Go ahead, sir.
That sounds really exciting.
Yeah, the great thing is with the infrastructure in place now, we're actually launching in Texas as well, and we've got 2 new hires coming in on Tuesday, and everything is already ingrained so that they're going to be successful as well.
It sounds amazing. Sounds like you've been there less than a year. You've just hit the ground running. I'm just noticing we're almost out of time, and I got one last question.
Yeah.
If you could give yourself advice before you started, the MBA program downtown Toronto at the Lazaridis School, like, what would it be?
That's a great question. The advice that I would have is wow. I mean, I really enjoyed my time there, and the people, and the projects that I was working on. I just wish that, actually, the one thing I'd say is I wish that I stayed in touch and built even stronger connections with the profs. Right, there's one of those things where it was such a wealth of knowledge of these profs that are out there and the connections you had in the industry that I wish I had done this earlier. Being able to give back to the school. So I'd say if you're in there, obviously build the connections with the other students, but don't forget about the profs. Don't forget about the alumni like yourself, because you can come back later on a couple of years from now and realize, especially in sales, that not only can you help them, but they can help you as well.
I think, Rich, that's an excellent point. Doesn't matter where you are, it's the Laurier and it's the Lazaridis School community. And, I've seen, lots of alumni come back, interact with professors for case projects, for research with regards to their own industry. So I think that's a really valuable thing to think about if you're starting, be it the MBA program or any program at the Lazaridis School. Thank you for sharing your insights and experience today. I know it'll be of great value to everyone in the community. For those watching, don't forget to subscribe to our social channels to stay up to date with the Lazaridis School. And thank you for watching Beyond the Degree, featuring Rich Dang, VP of Sales at ChefHero and a graduate of the Lazaridis School MBA in downtown Toronto.